Well, hello, and thank you for joining me for another iTWire video. This time we're having a chat with Fabian Dudek. He is the CEO and founder of Nestpick. Welcome to the program, and thank you for joining us live from Berlin.
Hi, thanks.
So I thought we'd I know we'll go into more detail, but can you please give us the short version to start with of what Nestpick is and what it does, why you created it, where you operate around the world, and where the name comes from? I know that's a lot of questions, but we'll go through them. Don't worry.
Yeah, okay. So basically the whole story of Nestpick starts around 5 years ago. That is when I, from Germany, moved to the Netherlands to start my studies there. And I, as every other international student, had huge trouble finding housing and was actually almost homeless. And I just wanted to earn some money on the side actually during my studies and started a little company. And out of that company, grew a real estate agency for international students. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't very proud of what I was doing there, because it was very clear that we were, not creating the best solution we could with this real estate agency. So at one point, we just started focusing purely on helping international students online to rent out their rooms. Mm-hmm. And from that, Nestpick emerged. And now we don't help only students, but actually everyone who dares to rent an apartment online.
Yeah.
And well, the name comes from, a couple of nights of drinking and thinking about some creative names that we needed that really we wanted to be very, very different from every other real estate agency or real estate company that was out there, because we felt that there's no real estate company that stands for anything. And also, if I think about my own associations with real estate, it's not really a market that I actually want to be in because, it's not the cool guys that are in there.
Yeah.
And as for where are we actually operating, so we started out in the Netherlands, started expanding to a couple of different cities there. And then in December, we expanded to France, Italy, and the UK and Spain. Afterwards, we also did Germany and Austria, and on top Ireland, and now we're launching in Australia, which is probably one of the most exciting launches that we did.
Yeah.
Because it's so far away, because it's such an awesome country, and I've always dreamed about actually being able to do this, and because it's there's a bit of a time difference as well, which also makes it kind of challenging.
So just quickly, nest is, people call the home the nest, and pick is to pick.
Exactly.
Pick the home or pick a nest,
exactly.
and nest pick, yeah.
So,
and so have you ever...
It's supposed to be like, it's not home, because that word is overused.
Yeah.
And also, when you're moving somewhere, it's not directly going to become your home, right? But it might become your nest.
Yeah.
And secondly, pick is like, we really want people to feel the power again of, they are able to choose where they're going to live compared to, like just having to take what they get.
Yeah. And so have you ever been to Australia yourself?
I am planning to this summer.
But that's very cool. You're starting a business in Australia and you haven't even set foot in the country. That's wonderful. Yeah. That's the power of the internet.
Yeah, for sure. It's part of exactly what we do in the end. I also have to admit, that by now we're in 40 cities and I've not even visited half of them. I'd love to do it more. But I also would love to bring Nestpick everywhere, so I kind of have a trade-off there.
Sure. So tell us more actually about how Nestpick works. So you were doing it with international students, and it's obviously some sort of online thing where they're looking at listings online. But give us a bit more detail on how the process actually works for both landlords and tenants.
Yeah, for sure. So in the end, it all starts with us finding a landlord or a landlord contacting us saying, hey, I'd like to rent out my place with you guys.
Yeah.
So what we do is that we send a professional photographer to the apartment of the landlord. Then that professional photographer first checks, is that actually your apartment? And secondly, visualizes the apartment so that you as a customer are able to exactly see how the apartment looks like. And then we put that thing online and allow you to actually, kind of view it online. Yeah. So we want to give you the most representative picture of how the apartment actually looks like, just from the comfort of your sofa. Then if you decide that this place is exactly yours, you make a booking. which is of course includes a bit more information than on other places, but still it goes relatively fast actually. And we reserve the deposit and a service fee on your account, so that will be your PayPal or credit card account.
Sure. Well, I mean, we'll go into. I was going to say we'll go into the details of what it costs in a moment, but sorry, keep going.
Okay, yeah, and then the landlord has 48 hours to respond to your booking request, saying, "Hey, I love that tenant," or I'm looking for someone else who stays a bit longer, or whatever that landlord has as preferences.
Yeah.
And given he accepts, which he does most of the time, you two have made an agreement online, and then we keep the deposit in our accounts, and then when you move in, you have 3 days to actually once more see, does this place look like it looked on the pictures? And if it does, then we transfer the deposit to the landlord.
Right.
So that is how the process works. And it seems like, while that's not such a big difference compared to, a real estate agent or so, but because we're able to do it online, we're able to do it everywhere. And because we're able to do it everywhere, we're able to provide so much cheaper service and offer, so many more securities simply because we have the scale to do it.
Sure. And just questions that have popped in my mind as you're explaining this. Before the tenant or the landlord, before the landlord decides to accept, can the tenant and landlord chat a bit more? And is there some sort of like a TripAdvisor ranking where landlords can be ranked, rated, and tenants can be rated, with a thumbs up, thumbs down, so that previous tenants can say this was a great landlord, or previous landlords can say, wow, this was a great tenant, or stay away from this guy or girl?
Wouldn't that be amazing if that would actually exist, right?
Yeah. So are you doing it?
That is what we're working on, indeed. So we're already collecting that feedback.
Yep.
We still need to actually put it online, but indeed we're already collecting it. And I mean, what the hell, right? Right now, when there's a landlord and you're renting from him or her, you don't know who that person is, and you don't know if the earlier tenant liked it or not. That's one. But two, actually, the bigger thing is actually, I as a landlord know that, and I have no incentive whatsoever to actually be a good landlord. Yeah. Because I know no one is even going to know or care. So I really have to be a really good person in order, to actually still be a good landlord. Yes, we're implementing that as one.
Yeah.
And the second thing, what was the second thing you asked? There was...
the landlords and tenants being able to chat a bit more.
Exactly.
Before the landlord says, yeah, look, I'd like to proceed, or at least I'd like to take it to the next stage.
Yeah. Right now we try to solve that need by just providing a lot of information. Yeah. Tenants writing, their life story. I mean, some really write really long letters.
Yeah.
So that those two can get to know each other. Yes, we are also planning to include a messaging feature. But we've just launched a new website one month ago. So, like with technology, you move from one step to the next, and always think MVP.
People always have feature requests, and so no doubt there'll be more of those. I mean, it also just makes me think of like a Nestpick Tinder type app where landlords and tenants can swipe pictures of each other or swipe pictures of the properties, you swipe left, swipe right. I mean, you could do anything, couldn't you?
Actually, if you so there were a couple of people that really that really proposed this to us as kind of like a marketing gig.
Yeah.
But back then we were so small that we were like, dude, we can't invest in an app doing that if we can't even invest that much in our own site.
Yeah. But now that you've grown a bit,
probably could a bit more.
Yeah.
But if you check our website on mobile, actually we do have at least that Tinder functionality in there because it's really beautiful, right? Like so you have a lot of pictures, and then you just swipe and go through the apartments, kind of like that.
Yep.
Doing that with tenants, what would be fun, but probably only semi gonna work.
Yeah. Wow, and it just popped into my head. Clearly other people have instantly thought of the same thing, and you're already sort of thinking about it, which is good. So clearly being able to book and apply for a mid to long-term tenancy, completely online is what's making Nestpick different from just your traditional real estate sites and real estate listings and online apps. And you were saying that you're aiming at students and expats. So I'm just looking through my questions here because we've sort of we've already answered some of these things. But I mean, are you going to also? Is this going to be something that is going to be for locals as well, or are you how are you going to market to them? What are you going to do with the because I'm sure a lot of people locally will say, hey, I want to use that too.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it's actually, so how we started was we focused on international students. Then we just saw that expats happened to also want to use the service.
Yeah.
And what we then saw was that locals also started to actually rent rooms entirely online, even though they could have viewed a place and they could have asked their network or whatever ways people use right now to find an apartment. So for us, clearly, our goal is to create a new standard how people rent their apartments in the future.
Yeah, and it's not just it's not just rooms. It can be rooms. It can be entire apartments. It can be houses. It can be whatever the landlord wants to let.
Exactly. And it's what it is for us. Like we believe in making markets work, and we believe in enabling people to be able to go wherever they want to go.
Yeah.
So certainly this concept has an aspect that is international. So you go from Australia to Germany or from Germany to Australia, and on the other hand, it has this convenience and joy factor in it, where it's just okay. I already live in this city and I'm looking for a new room or apartment, and I just can choose among hundreds where I know the information is up to date and can just, rent it like that.
I mean, I myself have traveled interstate, and I had to get some local accommodation, which was very expensive. And then I had to go to viewings, and, it was 2 or 3 weeks later, you're out of pocket by several hundred or thousands of dollars, which should have gone into a property. But, you've also got the issue where real estate agents seem to want to insist that you come and look at the place first. And you explained before that you've got the photographers that go there. The people seem to have a 3-day cooling off period once they actually get there. Have you also? So tell us a bit more about that. But have you also got not just photographs, but have any of your photographers gone there and maybe taken videos or done virtual reality tours?
Exactly. Man, I'd love to run this together with you. There's so many ideas already that we're working on as well. Number one, viewing this place. This was the question that I got from the beginning onwards, right?
Course,
for about a year now, I continue answering this question.
Sure.
And at one point, I got a bit tired and I realized it's not as convincing when I say, look, but you really know how the place looks like, and we have this Nest Assured insurance that makes sure that we pay you a hotel should it not like it looks like on the pictures, etc., etc. But actually, I moved towards answering this question differently. Imagine that 10 years ago, someone would have told you that you're going to buy shoes online at one point.
Yeah.
What would your response have been?
Well, how do I know it's going to fit? Yeah.
Yeah, like I want to know, how do they fit, or how does the color look like exactly, or that was just a standard that had been created by local shoe stores back in the days.
Yeah.
And there was a Zappos and a Zalando that were working on breaking through that standard.
Yeah.
So now that is what we're doing with real estate. Now, certainly, there's certainly we still have a way to go in which we can, make sure that we even more show you exactly how the place looks like with virtual tours, like with 3D floor plans, etc., etc.
Sure.
So we're moving into that. But in the end, I think, and that is the success of e-commerce, people started understanding what the real advantages of doing this all online and of centralizing this are, because it becomes more transparent, it becomes so much more convenient, it becomes so much cheaper as well.
Yeah.
So it's just using resources efficiently, and so that's how I answer that question now.
Yeah, and everything evolves. The site evolves, the answers evolve, the capabilities evolve, and that's as it should be.
Yeah, I think so too. So
we can see some really big benefits there for the tenants, and you've already explained some of the benefits for the landlords, but do you want to go into any more detail about how landlords really benefit by this being different from the traditional system of having to rent a real estate agent, etc.?
Yeah, completely agree. So I think the biggest advantage for a landlord is that we are a continuous solution. So as a landlord, you know that you're going to have a recurring problem, right? You always have to find a new tenant over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Now with us, because we've kind of created a booking system for the rental market, we know exactly when the place is going to become available again, and can market it to people that are looking months before the current tenant is actually leaving.
Yeah.
Now that has two advantages. One, you save a lot of time because you don't need to, upload it again and again and again.
Yeah.
And secondly, you actually increase the occupation of your apartment because, you can actually accept tenants month before the apartment becomes available again, because you're also saving on this viewing period that you have in between.
Yeah.
And so, it's you earn more money, and secondly, you save so much more time as a landlord. And in some countries, even, real estate agents charge you as a landlord, and we don't do that.
Yeah. And so obviously that will minimize the amount of time between, the amount of time when there's nobody in there. But also in that case, what happens when a tenant says, oh, look, I really have to stay another 6 or 12 months? I mean, I guess the landlord can say, well, look, you've signed a lease. I mean, I can give you notice, or the landlord can say, well, okay, if you need to stay longer, I mean, yes, I have used the service of Nestpick to help me find somebody else, but I mean, what happens in that sort of situation?
Yeah, that's no problem, right? And in the end, what we see and what we've really also learned from an Airbnb, for example, is, or for that matter, also from an Uber, but I think Airbnb does it better, is they know the value of their hosts, right? This site would be nothing if they would not invest in their hosts. And for us, that's what we see as well. For us, it's not hosts, it's actual real landlords. But we understand that if they are successful, then we are successful. So that is really what we focus on, and we never do anything that keeps them from being successful, which is also why we don't ask for exclusivity, etc. So the only thing is that we always need to, of course, be up to date on when is the apartment actually available.
Sure.
So when the current tenant says, hey, I want to stay another 6 months, then the landlord just says, hey, that's great. I'm gonna just adapt the availability in my Nestpick calendar, and that's it.
Sure. And because you've got so many properties available, if somebody changes their mind, I mean, there must be some sort of cut-off time where, hey, you can't change your mind now, you've already given me notice. But there's so many other properties that potential tenants are probably looking at half a dozen or however many, and they've probably got sort of bids on several of them to try and make sure they get one,
Yeah.
Which would make sense. I mean, that's what people do now. They go and view half a dozen properties and put applications in for several and hope that one of them comes through, and hopefully they hope it's the one that they wanted. That's not always the case. Sometimes you've got to pick section 2 or 3. And so presumably, and this must already be the case around the world, landlords and tenants are protected or subjected to the existing rental tenancy laws and tribunals of each state and country.
Yeah. So there are two types of regulations. Regulation 1 is kind of telling landlords how much they should be charging. So you have that, for example, very extremely in the Netherlands, which was our first market, which we really don't agree with, because in the end, we want to make the market work, right? And if there are only 10 apartments and there are 100 potential tenants, well, then the landlord can probably charge a bit more, right? Because that's how it works. There's supply and demand.
Supply and demand, yeah.
And the second thing is actually that governments more and more, especially here in Europe, are starting to prohibit real estate agents from charging tenants. Because what they've moved to do is just, they have like 20, 30, maybe 100 really good apartments, and they put them on some real estate platforms and then don't do anything except once open the door so that people can view the place and give you the key afterwards. And for that, they charge 1, 2, 3 month rent, which sometimes amounts to like 5,000-6,000 euros.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And no one should be earning that kind of money so easily with that little value add.
That's it.
So governments are moving towards prohibiting real estate agents from actually charging those fees to the tenant and force them to charge them to the landlord.
Yeah.
Now the problem is, again, while I think it's noble because tenants shouldn't be charged this much, on the other hand, there is a market, right? And there's a balance in between there, and there's a certain power imbalance between landlords and tenants depending on the city you're in.
Yeah.
So how we try to solve that is instead by just understanding every single market, adapting our fees on the landlord and tenant side towards the balance or imbalance in the market. And lastly, to just actually make it so simple for everyone who does have space to actually rent out that space to people in need of that, so that we also increase supply and make sure that we bring the markets to more balance and an equilibrium again.
Sure. And, you mentioned Uber and Airbnb, and we're talking regulation. I mean, when you talk about renting space or renting a room, I mean, in one sense that's, but you're probably talking about more of a long-term basis. So there's a little tiny bit of overlap there with what Airbnb does, except they do it on a sort of a much shorter scale. But is there anything else you want to say about the regulations around what governments are doing or trying to do with Uber and Airbnb, and how that will relate to you and Nestpick?
Yeah. So I think Airbnb is great. Yeah, it's an awesome service, and they've really helped us also to like, they've educated the market. Yeah, and they've now people, you couldn't start with renting out spaces for a year if there was not someone first who did it for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Right. I mean. Yeah. So an Airbnb probably couldn't have been there if there was not a Booking.com or other booking sites before. So it's just this natural evolution.
Everyone's standing on the shoulders of giants.
Exactly.
As they say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, what Airbnb has trouble with is that they are increasing the prices of living space in cities where there's already a very difficult situation, right? I mean, I know you guys have that in Australia where, rental prices are rising and everybody is complaining how expensive it is. Now you have exactly the same in London or in Berlin or in Amsterdam, exactly the same. Now that, of course, becomes even more extreme if you take a living space away and start renting it to tourists. Now, and that is, I think, what governments are fighting against, even though I'm, of course, not the expert in the tourism space, because what we're working in is real estate. But so for us, actually, neither those regulations for real estate agents apply, nor do those regulations for an Airbnb apply, because it's legal to rent out any space for a couple of months or years. Yeah, because long-term is legal. Governments want you to do that if you have extra space, and they want you to earn money with that. So it doesn't apply to us, but let's see what governments do come up with in the future when we have become a giant.
Okay, so the next question, I guess, is what does it cost for landlords and prospective tenants to use the service?
So we're currently charging 25% of 1 monthly rent to the tenant. So you pay that on top of the rent and deposit. But what we've, of course, realized, and with our belief in markets and in just general economics, we are moving towards just having a model that balances out the power between landlords and tenants. So in the end, you will see that in different markets, we'll start charging landlords or tenants depending on how much supply or demand there is.
Sure.
So in the end, we do all of that, focusing on maximizing the transactions that happen via the website, because that is where we're completely aligned, right? We only earn when we solve a problem for a tenant and a landlord. So if we maximize on that, then we create the most value. And that's a long-term view, because again, when landlords are successful with us, then we are successful. Yep. So that's how our fee structure will be changing.
Sure. And is there some sort of algorithm? Everyone's got algorithms that determine all this sort of stuff. Have you got one there as well?
Yeah. At the start, an algorithm is always just, some people, doing something manually most of the time.
Yeah.
And you just call it algorithm so that it sounds really fancy.
Yeah.
But sure, there's multiple beautiful algorithms that we have in the website. Number one is, of course, which properties do we actually show to you so that you don't get bored, looking at properties that don't make sense for you.
Yep.
And secondly, of course, also, there's, algorithms that start calculating, how many transactions are happening in that specific area at that specific time, how many landlords do we have, etc., etc.
Now, today's the 1st of June, and you're launching
Yes.
today in Australia on the 1st of June. So why did you choose this date?
Well, it's the beginning of the month, and that's always good, I think,
Yeah.
to start. Now, for us, it's I mean, there's the switch of the semesters, and that for us always makes sense, right? So we're focusing on international students and experts first of all, and like when we're moving into a market, just to get some first traction, and you have the switch of the semesters coming up, so it just really made sense for us. Plus, we really also couldn't wait. If we could have, we would have done it even earlier.
Sure, and I mean in Australia, it also happens to be the start of the financial year. I think it is. I think it is. So anyway, it's you got to start somewhere, and this is where you're starting. And
exactly.
And so, which Australian cities will you be covering at launch, and will you then expand those to future cities, and then and will you expand it so that landlords and tenants across Australia can use the service?
Yeah. So currently, we're going to launch in Sydney and Melbourne. Mm-hmm. Simply because it's the two cities where we believe we can add the most value.
Yeah.
Now, what is important for us, of course, as a marketplace is liquidity or critical mass. Yeah. So having having enough properties so that a visitor that comes to the website actually also finds what he or she is looking for. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, if I'm a landlord, adding my property to Nestpick, that I actually am 100% sure that I'll find a tenant earlier than with anything else. So for us, focus is really important there. But obviously, as we start improving our product and as we start start enabling everyone to self-service themselves more and more, we of course are also gonna open this up way more and just see, okay, naturally, where does this evolve to? And if we see a lot of people using the service in some city that we didn't expect before. And we'll, of course, also push marketing, etc., especially there to also, again, reach critical mass there. So it's those two cities. And then we see from there, what are the next cities where we can add the most value. But, it's important for us to not only put little flags into cities and say, hey, we're there, but to actually, have a profound positive impact.
Yeah, and I guess that's the same sort of thinking behind then opening in New Zealand or Southeast Asia or other countries around the world.
Exactly. I mean, so again, our goal is to create a new standard of how people are going to be renting their apartment, enabling anyone to go anywhere on the one hand, but also just creating the most simple way that you are actually going to find an apartment. So if you look at that goal, then we're not going to stop in Europe. We're not going to stop in Australia. We want to do this globally, and we want to globally solve this problem.
Yeah.
It's just always a balancing act between, again, this critical mass, providing a high quality service in those areas where we're in, and moving on to the next ones. So yes, we'll be expanding when I can't tell.
Yeah. Now you must be getting a lot of social media buzz, people talking about it on Twitter and Facebook and to each other, sure. and in the universities and schools. But are you doing any other sort of marketing, Google ads or Facebook ads or any other sort of marketing, traditional marketing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think something has happened over the last couple of years, or two things I think actually have happened. So, 5 years ago, venture capitalists would tell you, hey, the best product doesn't always win. I think nowadays that's becoming less and less true. And, there are multiple examples that also show that it indeed isn't true anymore, like an Evernote or a Dropbox, very product intensive companies that have almost not spent anything on marketing. Or if you also look at a Zappos, for example, those guys also, they just said, okay, look, we don't focus on marketing. We instead focus on delivering just an awesome service.
Yeah.
So for us, that's also really important, and we try to invest mainly into providing an awesome service and building an awesome product. And that's why a majority of our customers actually comes from word of mouth. And we want to continue making that happen. Now, why does and I think the second thing that happens is that word of mouth is becoming so much stronger, right? Mm-hmm. So there's social media and people are becoming increasingly connected. So if you do have one awesome experience, or if one customer has an awesome experience, he's probably going to tell 100 people.
Yeah.
Back in the days, that might have been only 10 people he or she would have told. So that's what we believe in, and it's a big share of our marketing activities, actually. And then a second thing, obviously, that we do as social media is really important for us, because it allows you to more than a Google ad, explain what we're doing, explain why we're doing it.
Interact.
And our target group is just also very present on social media.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, of course, you also have the standards, right? We also send you updates about new properties that are available that fit your requirements. And, of course, you also find us on Google in ads, as well as, our SEO team is doing a good job. So, yes, we do have a marketing mix while we focus on product.
Now, I do have 2 or 3 other questions, but I was just wondering, what other online businesses are you running? What else are you doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, so I actually this is the first real online business that I've built to the kind of size it is. I mean, as people can probably also tell, I'm quite young still.
Yeah.
But so I was running a couple of companies beforehand. Some of them I sold, some of them I just left where they were, otherwise, I mean, I'd love to sometime in the future go into investing, etc. But so yeah, I'm mainly focusing on Nestpick. That's
the focus. Which focus on the one that you're passionate about, and other opportunities will open up, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
So look, just to change gears for a moment, I always like to ask people this question, but I'm sure there's plenty of good pieces of advice yet to come to you, seeing as you're still so young. But to get you where you are today, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received that you can share with us?
Yeah. So for me, it's a bit of a fuzzy one, but I've run this real estate agency, right? And we had a lot of customers and were very profitable, but I felt like I didn't have a lot of energy actually doing it, because honestly, I was not proud of what I was doing there. And I felt that the team was neither. And so what for me is actually the thing that I focus on most is I would actually like to always in my life be working on something that I can be truly proud of, instead of, just earning a lot of money, but actually not feeling good about it.
Yeah.
Because I do think that the two can actually, go hand in hand. At one point, it's just one is a bit more short term and one is a bit more long term. So for me, yeah, it is, do really do what you're truly proud of. And I always try to remember, imagine that all of your customers would come into your office. Would you be able to actually, go and have a beer with them, or have a, look them in the eye and have a proper conversation with them?
Yeah.
And, that really reminds me of focusing on the customer and focusing on providing an awesome solution, instead of trying to earn more money or trying to reach certain KPIs that VCs or investors told you should reach.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's very good advice. So, last 2 questions. Given that Nestpick seems to be quite a disruptive new way of looking at real estate for landlords and tenants to find each other and do business, how else do you think the market might change in the next 5 to 10 years, looking in the crystal ball? And what are your expectations for the future of Nestpick?
Yeah. So how is the market going to change? I think the real estate market is one that has the highest potential for disruption right now. Because let's be honest, man, nothing happened. Like, the one thing that happened was that the billboards that used to be there, or like, the boards on university campuses or wherever, started to be exchanged by electronic billboards.
Yeah.
So now that you go on those platforms, but that's it.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing else happened there.
Yeah.
So I think a lot is going to happen there. We are working on one thing, but I can imagine also that there's going to be a lot more happening in the management of real estate, for example. There are a lot of simple tasks that need to be done, and you could just imagine, like a TaskRabbit or so expanding to that space, or like a TaskRabbit for managing real estate, for example.
Yeah.
So that is one thing I believe that might be happening. And then I think when it comes to, and then I think it can go two ways, right? So the real estate market is by definition a very slow market. So if demand starts, growing super fast, then the real estate market always needs a couple of years to actually pick up with that, because, you can't create buildings so quickly.
Yeah.
And I think with, rents continuing to rise and buying price also continuing to rise, something is going to happen, and it's going to go either that way or that way.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wouldn't know how to predict that. I also actually don't consider myself a real estate agent or a real estate expert. I think, I just want to create an awesome solution for people being able to go wherever they want to go, and, give them as much time as they can enjoying life, instead of, spending horror times emailing back and forth and doing viewings, etc.
Yeah.
And well, what's the goal with Nestpick? I think for us, step one is, continue to make this process and service really awesome, because of course I'm now talking as if it's like super amazing already, and I think it is.
Yeah.
But we also have our faults, yeah. And we've expanded super quickly now, and there are certainly things that we still need to fix and continue fixing.
Mm-hmm.
So that excites me, and I would like to do that as one. I think two, we can do way more for people that do have extra space, to actually allow them to rent out that space. So let's assume, that we just had standard contracts for every Australian jurisdiction. And we would just tell you, hey, if you do have an extra room, or if you do have an extra apartment, and currently you were just not doing anything with it because you felt it was too much hassle, now it's just so simple. I mean, come on, it takes you 5 minutes. You upload something on Nestpick, we send a photographer by, and that's it. Yeah, you just, with one click, accept someone. Maybe even also going into automation of rent payments, etc., etc. So there's a lot that I can see there. But for now, I think the focus is always super important when you're running a startup. So the focus is on making what we have really way more awesome, expanding this on a global scale, and then going into additional things like automation of or automation of rent payments, or potentially also moving services that we could be adding, etc., etc. There's a lot of potential, but now we're really talking far ahead.
Yeah. And you mentioned, before about sending photographers. You just mentioned it then. I mean, is that fee for the photographer part of the price that you charge the landlord? And you must have already organised for photographers to be in Sydney and Melbourne, or existing ones that you're going to be using.
Exactly. So yeah, we already have photographers in Sydney and Melbourne, indeed.
And so there's
because we already also have verified apartments online, actually, in those cities. And what we're paying them is we just intend to earn back with the booking fees that we're receiving. Now, as a landlord, if you list your space, it's entirely free. Yeah, and also verifying it is entirely free.
Yeah.
So no worries there.
No hidden charges.
We don't want to charge anyone anything if we don't help them. We don't help you with taking professional pictures, and we're not a professional picture company.
Yeah.
We're a company that is the easiest, simplest, most secure way of connecting landlords and tenants. So that's what we charge for.
And can you say how many properties and verified properties you already have in Australia? Yeah.
So we have. So actually, we've been growing by about 60% every month in properties since November, and are now at 20,000 properties that we have online.
In Australia, in Sydney and Melbourne.
No, that's in total.
Globally,
in Sydney and Melbourne, we have about 400 now, and those are actually verified. So we're actually only putting verified properties online in Sydney and Melbourne. And we'll continue to do so, and we'll now also see what are the places that people really want, and then also go for more places like those.
And so
we need a bit of training there as well.
And so those properties that are already online, that sort of like was a bit of a soft launch. People contacted you and said, "Hey, I want to put properties here because I know you've got people from Germany or elsewhere wanting to come to Australia."
Exactly. So it's with us a launch, right? The thing is, we can put five properties online and say, hey, we launched, or we can say, okay, from now on, landlords can upload their properties in Sydney and Melbourne, and that means we launch, right? So, I mean, this launch phase for us is always a bit difficult because, like, you know, what is a launch? And how long do we also want to wait? Because, you know, if it takes us a bit to add those properties, the others might already be rented out again.
That's it.
We focused quickly on, you know, getting a lot of properties online so that, you know, it's actually worth it looking at the site, and I'd love for you for you guys to check it out. And yeah, you know, then from there we'll only be learning and adding more properties and adding, you know, those properties that people are actually looking for.
So I think you just answered my final question just with what you just said. But do you have any other final messages for iTWire viewers and readers, and for your current and future landlord and tenant customers?
Yeah, well, I think what is just important for everyone to understand, and for those people that we'd love to be working with, is just that we really try to change something here. Yeah, and we do not accept the status quo that we currently have in real estate. We do not accept that rental prices are going up and up and up, even though, of course, we want our landlords to be earning a fair return on their apartments. But so for us, you know, if you want to be part of actually, you know, changing something on a global scale, then, you know, check out what we're doing and think about renting or letting in an apartment with us. And well, I think otherwise, I see you guys sometime soon in Australia, because I'm really looking forward to actually see that country.
And the address is nestpick.com globally, yeah?
Exactly. But you can we actually also have the Australian domain live now. But whatever you wish, you know, it's nestpick.de. If you know you want to see it in German, that also works. But yeah, indeed, nestpick.com. So it's nest like the nest of a bird, and pick like picking up the phone, and .com, I guess everybody knows.
And .com.au. All right, Fabian, thank you very much, and the best of success and luck to you.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this. Thanks.
Thank you. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.